Manchester City and Chelsea faced potential expulsion from the Premier League if found guilty of breaching financial fair play rules. The 23-24 season has already seen two clubs receive point deductions for similar infractions, prompting scrutiny over the consistency of penalties. Legal experts outlined potential sanctions, including warnings or expulsion for Premier League clubs found in breach. Both clubs are implicated in significant breaches, with City denying 115 allegations and Chelsea flagged for illicit payment. Manchester City's case is set to conclude in the 2024-2025 season, while Chelsea awaits formal charges amid ongoing investigations. For more on this, I'm joined by Babatunde Koiki, the editor, Sports Desk, News Central TV. Thank you, Babatunde, for joining me today.
Good morning, Perpetua.
All right, so how does this variety of, alleged breaches by Chelsea and Manchester City compare to Everton's offence, which resulted in a mere 10-point deduction?
Okay, for those who don't understand, there's something called profit and sustainability rules in English football. Basically, if every club must not record a loss of more than £105 million for 3 consecutive seasons. Now, the likes of Manchester City and Chelsea, they've definitely gone way beyond that particular limit. And of course, because of Manchester City's ownership by, a state-funded entity, there's a lot of belief that a lot of the contracts, a lot of the income that they've declared does not fall within the regulatory parameters. Basically, they've overinflated the value of these contracts. For example, Manchester City is sponsored by Etihad Airways, and a lot of people believe that the value of those contracts are far less than what is declared on the books. This is what a lot of people call financial doping. In the last 20 years, English Premier League clubs have become increasingly attractive to investors all across the world. Now, of the 20 clubs in the Premier League, 15 of them are currently foreign-owned, 8 of them by Americans. So this has turned out to be issues regarding how these clubs are run, whether they're run sustainably, profitably. Basically, the authorities are trying to make sure that these clubs do not spend more than they earn. In the case of Chelsea, their charges relate back to when they were formerly owned by Russian oligarch Roman Abramovich, and it's understood that they received secret payments that did not reflect in the club's accounts, but thereby benefited the club, which is definitely in a breach of the PSR rules. Now, what this means is that both clubs could potentially face, it could be a sanction, it could be a warning, it could be a points deduction, or it could even go as far as even outright expulsion from the Premier League and demotion to the lower league.
All right, so besides the demotion, relegation, or what have you, what other unlimited punishments, could the Premier League consider for FFP breaches?
Well, pretty much a sanction. It might include a transfer ban. These clubs might not be allowed to sign players in order to improve their their squads, maybe for a period of time, maybe 1 season, maybe 2 seasons. It all depends on the severity of the allegations, and it has to be determined by a judicial panel. Now, it's pretty much the same thing that you have in a court, where there's a panel, there's a lawyer for the club and a lawyer for the FA, and both of them have to state their cases, as it were, in order for them to reach a ruling, reach a conclusion, whereby a ruling will determine where the severity of the infraction by each club.
All right, so how long might the legal process take for Manchester City's 115 alleged charges and, any potential charges against Chelsea?
Well, for the Manchester City case, it's actually been going on for quite a while right now. They were actually charged in February 2023. A lot of people thought that this would have actually gone to the judicial panel by now, but it's been going on underground. Manchester City have retained the services of one of the most high-profile lawyers in England, and in fact, he's even gone as far as charging the head of the panel, Sir Murray Rosen, of being an Arsenal fan, and basically he's questioning his credibility and his impartiality in this particular case. So it might take some time, but we do hear that it might be November, December before. Maybe around November, December, before when the Manchester City case is up for hearing. But for Chelsea, it's already currently being investigated now. They might receive a formal charge anytime soon.
All right, so what are the chances of Everton's appeal against their 10-point deduction? What are the chances of it being successful?
It's already been successful. They've successfully appealed. They initially received a 10-point deduction. The appeal was successful, so it's been cut to just 6 points. Now, what that means is that they still stand a very strong chance of escaping from relegation. Now, being relegated from the Premier League is a major, major blow for many of these clubs because the Premier League is the most lucrative football league in the world. The minimum that many of these clubs can make just being in the Premier League is as much as £225 million. Now, if you take that amount of money away from your financial operations every year, it leaves a huge hole in your profit. So it helps us, Everton, in the sense that they might possibly escape relegation.
All right, well, let's look at this now. How is the independence of the panel, the particular panel that decides on FFP punishments ensured? And, can there be potential bias? Can that be a concern?
Yeah, that's exactly what Manchester City are claiming. They're claiming that the head of the panel is an Arsenal fan. So they're saying that he might not be biased. And if you've been watching the Premier League for the past 2-3 seasons, Arsenal have been title contenders alongside Manchester City, who are already being charged. Now, Arsenal were runners-up to Manchester City last season. They are currently top of the Premier League, while Manchester City is fighting to retain their title. And so Manchester City have attacked the credibility of the panel by saying that the head of the panel is basically an Arsenal fan, so his own position might be tainted, as it were. So it's been interesting seeing how everything is going on, but a lot of clarity will be revealed in the coming weeks.
Okay, so what preventive measures could the Premier League implement to ensure, stricter adherence to financial fair play regulations moving forward?
Well, I don't think they can do any much more than they're currently doing now. All of these clubs, they're having their books scrutinized every year, every season, at the end of every season. So it's pretty much a case of running a fine comb through all these accounts and making sure that there's no hint of financial doping, as it were. Because basically what the Premier League is trying to do is that these clubs do not spend more than they earn. And new relegations are coming, making it increasingly impossible for these clubs to have any form of financial issues. Basically, what the authorities are trying to do is to ensure that these clubs continue to operate as a going concern in a sustainable manner, and they don't basically rely on, the sugar daddy syndrome, whereby there's just a foreign owner who's just pumping money into the club. He's not concerned about sustainability. He just wants to buy success. So the authorities are bringing new regulations in trying to ensure that these clubs are run sustainably, and we'll be hearing about them pretty soon.
When you keep talking about ensuring that they do not spend much more than they earn, the question then would be, in whose interest is it at the end of the day? Isn't it an irony that we have to help someone do the right thing?
Yeah, you're quite right. It's quite ironic, considering the fact that if these clubs are relegated, a lot is on the line. The fans, there's a loss of pride for them. The clubs also lose a tremendous amount of money. You would think that these clubs would do the right thing. But football is such an emotive sport that the quest for buying success, sometimes common sense is thrown out of the window. We've seen these clubs owners just throw tremendous amounts of money into buying the biggest players, signing the biggest managers, building the biggest stadiums. And it's not done in a sustainable manner, because if anything were to happen to the owner or the owning company, everything falls flat. So it really, that's why the authorities are really trying to ensure that these clubs are run as sustainably as possible, because you must remember, these are global institutions. Some of them have roots that go back as the 1800s. They are not playthings, and that is why a lot of people have very strong emotions when it comes to the ownership of clubs and how they are run, and even who owns them in the first place. There was a lot of talk in Newcastle when Saudi Arabia was going to take over that club because of human rights issues in that country. So it continues to raise a lot of questions, and hopefully these clubs will continue to get it right in order to prevent any kind of failure in the future.
So how will the final decisions on Chelsea, Manchester City, and even Everton's cases set a precedent for future FFP investigations and maybe punishments?
Okay. So the thing about precedents is, once it's done, it's basically goes into legal jurisprudence, and it will be used as a basis for whatever happens in the future. If by any chance that Manchester City or Chelsea face maybe a 30-point deduction or a relegation, it is going to change the landscape of the Premier League tremendously. Clubs will be scared, because if clubs as big as Chelsea, Manchester City, clubs who are in quotes too big to fail, face the ultimate penalty of being relegated, it will change things tremendously. Every club will sit up. Every club will not want to undergo that kind of punishment. So nobody wants to be the scapegoat. Nobody wants to be the sounding board or the testing ground for such hefty punishments. So you can imagine that Chelsea and Manchester City are doing everything that they can to argue their case But we'll be keeping an eye on it because it promised to be interesting. 115 charges, that is what Manchester City have been charged with. And the thing about financial breaches is when you're in breach of one, that might mean that you're also in breach of another one. So it's going to be very interesting to see how this pans out when the hearings begin.
Well, I know we're all waiting to see how it will pan out, but what are your own expectations?
Okay, so I'm hoping that the authorities will do their job without fail or favor because the Premier League continues to be the shining light and one of the leading sports leagues in the world. It is a competition of tremendous potential. And any failure in that structure begins to send alarm bells around global sports, not only football, in terms of financial viability, sustainability, how clubs are run, and management potential. So I'm just hoping that they do the right thing. If they have to be punished, I'm hoping the punishment will be commensurate with the crime and not overboard. Because likes of Everton have complained that they received a 10-point deduction. For what? And if Everton is receiving a 10-point deduction for just a small charge, what could possibly happen to Manchester City, who have been charged with 115 breaches of PSR rules? So I'm just hoping that whatever happens, it happens as quickly as possible because the Manchester City case has dragged on for far too long and people really want a resolution. And I'm hoping for one as quickly as possible too.
All right, we all are. Thank you so much, Babatunde Koiki, Editor, Sports Desk, New Central TV.